Alright guys, I'm officially a Gen Alpha defender now. So with that said, I do kind of have to do the Gen Alpha salute. So this is a far more embarrassing position than I thought it would be. I need a chair. Gonna- I am almost entirely out of frame.
Be gone!
No more chair. Gotta pull up my script. I was watching YouTube a few days ago, like you, and I saw a video by Casey Simpson. His bread and butter content, as anyone who's watched him knows, and anyone who knows what a Gen Alpha defender is, knows, his bread and butter content is making videos fear-mongering about Gen Alpha's stupidity. This has attracted many other Gen Alpha defenders, and I'm really only the most recent, such as Bionic Caesar, who Casey simply refers to as Gen Alpha defender because he's stupid. So far, he has been up to 10 defenders, none of which are of particularly high intelligence, but that changes today because I'm kind of smart. In the past, I've already dismantled one of his videos, so I have some experience with this guy, and I know he saw it because he commented calling me a smart cookie. He was not able to refute anything, and so he didn't. This is because this is easily the most egregious thing he has ever put on the internet, on account of the fact that in place of evidence, he usually used comedy skits and even videos from people such as Kaldruki and the many clones he has spawned. And while he has improved, his videos are still inaccurate, and while he has yet to stoop down to the level of Kaldruki, he's still not showing the full picture. Thus, I have decided to become a Gen Alpha defender for two main reasons. First, his videos have become incredibly boring. He says the same thing over and over again every 2 days for 30 minutes and is taking up valuable space on my For You page. Second, he won't take other Gen Alpha defenders seriously, and somewhat within reason. After all, I wouldn't take Bionic Caesar seriously either, because for some reason he picked the voice filter of robot auto-tuned to Tetris. So he's not taking him seriously for a very good reason. Also, other defenders have not demonstrated enough intelligence to be worthy of this huge TV star to use his time responding to him. This concludes the intro of the video. Previously, I thought it was ambiguous as to whether or not soon-to-be high schoolers would qualify as Gen Alpha or Gen Z, but now I choose to take the mantle of Gen Alpha specifically because I think that Casey is stupid. And Casey, if you're watching this now, this video will be mostly addressed to you. So, with that said, let's get into Casey's video. Okay, I gotta pull up my script again. Why is my mouse cursor backwards? What the hell? Okay, that's fine, I guess. Casey starts his video, Gen Alpha doesn't even know how to text, by showing a study. I wanted to find this study, but it will be inconvenient because he doesn't link it in the description, which he has a habit of doing. I found the paper anyway, and it shows what daily screen time in preschool can do to the standardized test scores in 3rd and 6th grade. It shows that for every hour of screen time in these formative years, there was a 9 to 10% decrease in the chance of scoring at an elevated level in 3rd grade reading and math and 6th grade math. It notably did not affect writing at any point, contradictory to the title of his video, and it did not affect reading in 6th grade. This means that even with many hours of screen time, these iPad kids still had the chance of scoring high in writing or in 6th grade reading as well. Even in this event, there was still a chance for kids to score high in other fields. Even worse, the block of text showing that the 6 hours statistic is from an entirely different study, since the words 6 hours don't even appear in the article or the paper it's referencing. So, Casey, where'd you get this from? Please link what you have in the description. It is extremely inconvenient. Directly afterwards, after his hook, you would expect him to play a thesis. This is because the thesis would have to relate to the title of the video, but he doesn't have a single instance of someone only being able to use dictation to type, and he only mentions it once in the video. We'll get there. Instead, He shows a TikTok where there are two people and one is quizzing the other. When asked what countries border the US, she responds incorrectly with Hawaii and Washington, which is obviously incorrect. But this is where Casey is prompted to make a joke about the bombing of Pearl Harbor.
Saying Hawaii made me feel like Hawaii in 1941 because it just dropped like a bomb on me.
My mom wasn't kidding when she said that you look like you have a lot of bad opinions. He then points out that some people don't know what 11:15 means, but some people have not been taught how to read an analog clock, making the term more difficult to understand. This is because it is only taught briefly in second grade, and if you're absent for a day, you might not learn how to read an analog clock. The person in the TikTok is then quizzed on what a century is, and she doesn't know the definition. This is because the word does not often come up in conversation, so she might have not even heard the word before. This should be unsurprising for Casey, since he thinks that all Gen Alpha children are stupid dum-dums who don't know any big words, but he instead remarks that this situation is similar to one where when asked what his favorite Robert Pattinson movie is, he responds by giving them a kumquat, which is a type of fruit. This is false, since there wasn't a gift exchange in the video. It is much more similar to a situation where if I was asked about my favorite Robert Pattinson movie, I responded by not knowing who Robert Pattinson is. The next question is, how many seasons are there? This can vary across different cultures. For example, there are 8 in Sweden, 5 to 6 in India, and 4 to 5 in Japan. Originally, she says 12, but this is because she accidentally mixed up seasons and months. Casey's response is to go on a tangent about 9/11 conspiracy theorists and pretends that they are the 9 people who, as the comedian in his video says, don't buy this 11 bullshit.
It goes 10, 12, 13.
TikTok person then says that Halloween is a season, potentially because Halloween has such a very different vibe from the rest of fall. And Casey agrees.
I want to start a petition to make Halloween the official 5th season.
The final question is, how many months are there? And she responds with 275, which may have come from misremembering the number of days in a year. Casey's next target is a group of 3 girls also quizzing their smartest friend, who is an idiot. She thinks that the capital of the US is medicine, but then Casey compares the situation to
Asking, hey, what's the square root of 100? And then you just respond by raping a zebra.
asking what the square root of 100 is and responding by raping a zebra. This is wrong, stupid, and horribly insensitive for reasons that even an iPad kid can understand. You could have said anything else, Casey, anything else. It's like asking for what the tower in France is and instead responding with hamburger. Instead, he responds by a comment about bestiality. If you think that was a joke, before this he says,
I don't even know how to make a joke here.
he takes himself so seriously that it's hard to believe anything he says is actually a joke, leading to the gems you find, such as raping a zebra. He then says that everyone else they must know has to be human guppies if this really is their most intelligent friend, which isn't true. It's just a stupid friend group. There are many stupid friend groups, and I have many doubts about the fact that you haven't met them, Casey, and that doesn't by proxy make everyone that they've met into a moron. He then compares the situation to telling you his tallest friend is Danny DeVito, which once again is wrong, since if you were really short, then it would be a reasonable thing to say. If it's true, that doesn't make everyone into the size of an ant. Furthermore, slander of the holotype specimen of the human race will not be tolerated. There is then more miscellaneous stupidity that doesn't amount to anything, followed by some miscellaneous intelligence, which once again disproves your argument. Casey has a bad habit of disproving his own points as well, another indicator that he's an idiot. Afterwards, he moves on to Kai Cenat and his gang of gooners and says that they can't pronounce anything, which isn't of novelty since Kai Cenat hasn't proven his intelligence either. He briefly mentions that Gen Alpha can't type, but doesn't linger on the point, which is strange, because that's the entire point of the video. Then he uses another comedy skit as evidence, another bad habit of his. Casey, don't know how many times I must tell you, but joke videos are not evidence. He then shows all the literate Gen Alpha kids in his comments section, once again disproving his own point, followed by a joke comment to use as evidence. He then moves on to the newest Gen Alpha defender and says that he makes a coherent argument, and then dodges the argument and moves on to Bionic Caesar. He then quotes Alfred Pennywise, not knowing that it's Pennyworth and not Pennywise, and says that he should replace his iconic quote, "Some men just want to watch the world burn," with "Some Gen Alphas just want to watch books burn." This was not done for two main reasons, those being Gen Alpha didn't exist yet, and the book wasn't about Gen Alpha since they didn't exist yet, so he would have no reason to say that. My AC is on. I will finish this later. He then moves on to people not believing what's in front of them, which I will get to later, and then he moves on to illiterate UCLA students. The sentence, "the beneficiary tried to embellish the extortion scheme," is kind of ambiguous, but it could either mean that someone who will get a lot of money from an extortion scheme is trying to make the task more appealing to his hitman, or he got caught trying to do that and is trying to make it look more legal. The fact that some people don't know this isn't terrifying in the slightest. Some people are bad at reading. This is a street interview for TikTok, so only the most insane clips make it in, and presenting this as the majority is dishonest as all hell. He then celebrates this illiteracy with a clip of a substitute teacher wearing a really inappropriate shirt to class, where Winnie the Pooh was calling in thick, which is hardly even provocative. He even says that no harm was done in the situation since students couldn't read. Never mind that children of this age normally can't read well enough to understand the joke anyway, but it's mostly because the shirt wasn't that bad anyway. He then says that some students don't want to read, will curse the teacher out, and expect an A++ for a grade, even though she never says A++ once in the video. As someone who has gotten an A++ in third grade before, I didn't even know it was possible, but you do it by telling your teacher about a special project you have been doing on your own time and showing it to your teacher outside of class time. No one, and I repeat, no one, not even an iPad kid, expects an A++ for doing what you're told and nothing more. After that, he steals someone's entire video showing what the parents are doing, which is proof that it is not exclusively an issue with Gen Alpha. Once again, more on that later. Then he shows many examples of jokes that students made in class in place of evidence for the point made in the title of the video. For example, "I just committed heinous acts of big backery" means I ate a lot, which isn't hard to understand, and furthermore is an example of a kid using more advanced words. Whenever kids don't use big words, they're brain rotted, according to Casey, and whenever they do, they're anomalous. On a scale of locked in to whimsical dolphin symphony crash out, "how we feelin'" means how focused are you? This is yet again not hard to understand because most people know what locked in means. He then starts talking about how teachers are quitting because of how the kids are acting, which is once again not exclusive to Gen Alpha. He also dislikes one kid's opinion, who said, "I'd rather be hot with cancer than ugly and pale," which is a personal opinion that Casey paints as looks maxing, even though tanning beds have existed for far longer than looks maxing. My computer's at low battery, so it might be recording in slightly lower quality. I also moved over here because I don't like standing right now. A different kid's favorite holiday was 9/11. This would have been a great opportunity to point out some of the things that Gen Alpha is seeing to prompt this, but instead he says,
I guess Osama bin Laden's daughter is also a Gen Alpha iPad kid.
his youngest daughter was born in 2006. He hypothesizes that Gen Alpha can't tell the difference between Osama, Obama, and Alama, which is just a terrible joke. He then starts whining about kids knowing about the Hawk Tuah girl as though this is exclusive to Gen Alpha, and then presenting some jokes that other students made as these vile, evil incantations, even though the teachers were laughing at them. The only bad one was the joke about Ginger. He then shows a bunch of people who aren't Gen Alpha and says that one guy is hoping the others don't notice his stupidity, and then starts whining about how they're just kids. We need to teach them. It is genuinely maddening how close he is to realizing, hey, I'm making fun of children. Maybe we should teach him. Maybe we should teach these children. Bionic Caesar has been telling you this for ages, Casey. How have you not noticed this? Instead, he points out the issue and runs away from every critique that is thrown his way, saying, "This is a really real issue, and by silencing me, the problem will get worse." He then disproves his argument again by showing good parents doing good parenting, proving that it's not a universal Gen Alpha issue, and then redefines depression.
Kids are deeply depressed. When kids don't know anything, they feel like they can't do anything. And when you feel like you can't do anything, you're depressed.
No, Casey, depression is a real thing. It actually means something. Depression is a disorder in the brain that leads to persistent feelings of sadness and lack of motivation to do things. It isn't when you feel like you can't do anything. For someone who made several whole videos on it, you are pretty terrible at knowing what it is. The final segment of this video includes feats such as clowning on someone who isn't Gen Alpha, followed by quoting the Unabomber.
You can't eat your cake and have it too. You can't eat your cake and have it
I would also like to take the time to point out the stupid thumbnails in his videos, and I have a list here. Gen Alpha still can't read. It's worse than you think. iPad parents are destroying Gen Alpha. Millennials are bad parents. Gen Alpha is getting worse. It's over. Gen Alpha is making teachers quit. Gen Alpha is attacking teachers. Gen Alpha's childhood is depressing. This is terrifying. How brain rot
Destroy!
minds. This is a nightmare. Gen Alpha still can't read, and it's getting worse. It's over. Gen Alpha is worse than you think. This is a nightmare. Gen Alpha is attacking me for saying they can't read. They're attacking me. Gen Alpha is failing. AI history class. Gen Alpha still can't read anything. This has to stop. I have more. Gen Alpha can't speak English anymore. This is insane. Gen Alpha can't read. We are doomed. Gen Alpha still cannot read. This is horrifying. Gen Alpha is in crisis. This is not survivable. Gen Alpha can't read three-letter words. What is SHE? Kids are graduating without being able to read. Screw you! Gen Alpha is out of control. Why Gen Alpha stopped watching TV? This has to stop. Why teachers are giving up on Gen Alpha? This is horrifying. Gen Alpha has gotten so much worse. And this is terrifying. The Unabomber tried to warn you this would happen. He warned us.
You can't eat your cake and have it too.
Judgment.
Gen Alpha will never read. It's over. Gen Alpha's reading crisis just hit a new low. This has to stop. Gen Alpha can't spell the word G-O. This is terrifying. Gen Alpha doesn't even know how to text. He can't read the word black. He has such an insane upload schedule that I have a hard time believing that he does this for anything except money. In conclusion, Casey's videos are nothing if not consistent. He starts by whining about a study or a TikTok, followed by more TikToks, mentioning the Gen Alpha defenders and running away if they say something of substance, mentions the title of the video once, doesn't elaborate, and abandons it for the rest of the video, whines about how important this is, TikTok again, and then finish with an absolutely insane conclusion that doesn't mean anything.
We're doomed.
You're doomed. Alright guys, I am back to this goofy setup under my bed because I didn't want my computer to die. Several times so far in this video, I've pointed out that the literacy crisis isn't exclusive to Gen Alpha. This is shown by the fact that around 44% of adults in America don't read a book once in any given year, and also the street interviews that Casey Simpson did disprove this. While searching which countries were 100% literate, I found that North Korea was 100% literate, which, given the fact that it's North Korea, is almost certainly a lie. Maybe things have changed, though, since that number was gathered in 2008. Additionally, in the US, it says that the literacy rate is 99%, but doesn't list the year. This list is also only tracking what percent of people 15 years old and above can both read and write with understanding a short, simple sentence about their life. A much more common number I am seeing is 79%, meaning that the US's literacy rate has dropped by 20% in the last 2 years. And I know that it would be 2 years because the site graphs there go until 2024. The fact that the literacy rate had dropped by 20% in the last 2 years is likely the reason that Gen Alpha's literacy rates are being impacted so badly due to lack of teaching from the parents. There's also another reason that fifth graders can only read three-letter words that rhyme. The reason being that they are still being taught three-letter words that rhymed. I interviewed my brother on this topic, revealing that they are being taught preschool topics in fifth grade. So, on amplify.com, my school called it Boost, but we would go on, like, first you would complete the story, which is actually pretty good, but after that there's a bunch of mini games, and all of them are pretty easy. Some of them are rhyming, but some of them are a little harder, but they were all pretty easy. For the three-letter rhyming words, it would be like mat, rat, cat, and you would take off the first letter and replace it with the letter to create the image on screen. Another one would be like there's little goblins and little toasts with letters on them. For example, if the goblin said zzz, you would feed it the bread with the Z on it. Then there's also a poetry one where it's like, oh no, it's the boss of end rhymes. And you would have to click on one thing and then click on the rhymes and then click on the next thing and click on the next rhyme. Then there's like, oh no, it's the boss of onomatopoeias. And you would have to click on all the onomatopoeias. There's also one that's like Curioso Crossing, I think is what it's called, where there's this little guy and little logs, and there's two words. There's going to be, for example, am and mom, and it will be like, click on the word that you hear. Then someone will be like, am, and you have to click on am. I'm just saying, for someone who is in like every advanced class possible, we should at least get a different app with something a little harder to do. So, we're learning like second grade and kindergarten stuff on these resources that this school is using. This also reveals the reason that adult literacy rates are still higher, that being that they've still been taught the bare minimum at an early age. Casey Simpson did many street interviews in his video talking about how they can't spell go, where he asked several people some questions about US history. It's too bad that these Gen Alpha street interviews are asking construction workers that are definitely not Gen Alpha. Here's a list of every person he interviews. Construction worker number 1, some guy in his early to mid 30s, which is older than Casey. Construction guy number 2, with the shades. Construction guys 3, 4, and 5. 2 people who are at the very least 17, which isn't Gen Alpha. 2 more guys in their 30s. 6 actual Gen Alpha kids at the same time, and another adult. There were 11 adults interviewed and 6 kids interviewed. Out of the number of interviews conducted, 7 were from adults and 1 was Gen Alpha. 2 if you're being generous about when the Gen Alpha kids moved to a different area. Most of, if not all of the people interviewed got a simple question wrong. This means that since there were 11 adults and 6 kids, one of the kids was a 3-year-old, the issue is twice as bad with adults compared to Gen Alpha. In conclusion, while Gen Alpha has a reading crisis, this issue is definitely not exclusive to Gen Alpha. Casey Simpson's interviews tell a grim tale of many adults being just as stupid as, if not stupider than Gen Alpha, thus proving him wrong. Not only is he fear-mongering about Gen Alpha, which is useless and doesn't call to action or address the entire root issue, but he proved himself wrong all day and all night, all while quoting terrorists. Alright guys, it's time for the outro.
Enrique!
If you liked this video, then like the video. If you have something to say, then put it in the comments section and make sure to subscribe, because at 500 subscribers, I will chug a gallon of orange juice right after brushing my teeth. If you're a fraud named Casey Simpson and you starred in a children's show, then feel free to make a response video that actually responds to my arguments, especially the one about especially about the street interviews. But I won't hold my breath on account of the fact that you never actually address any good arguments anyway. With that said, I hope you have a great day. Bye.